Mga kababayan, ang Pangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. For every life shaped by sacrifice, a nation rises in strength. Kadabyag a sinubok ken sinakripisyo, at dapagilyan nga agtignay iti pamati ken panagkaykaysa. Tatta, agtignay tayo asumangbay iti masakbayan nga nasayaat ken narangay. A future built on renewal, revival, and rebirth. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the commemoration of the 108th birth anniversary of President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. Please remain standing.
Tanghal! To! Na pinuno. Tanghal. To!
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Pinuno, aba, ta, ang nadala, kalis, baba, ta!
Let us remain standing for the singing of the Bagong Pilipinas hymn.
Mahal na Pangulo, handa na po ang pag-alay ng Bulaklak. Apeno, tap sa kanan, rap, sulong, kad.
As we celebrate this significant occasion, let us take a moment to pay our respects and remember the great hero and leader who etched a prestigious legacy in our history. Sa sandaling ito, ating saksihan ang pag-aalay ng bulaklak sa bantayog ni Pangulong Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. na sumisimbolo ng ating pagkakaisa at pagkilala sa kanyang hindi matatawarang kontribusyon sa ating bayan. Leading the wreath-laying is His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines, accompanied by Major General Gulliver L. Senieres, Commander, 5th Infantry Division, Philippine Army, and Honorable Cecilia Araneta Marcos, Governor of Ilocos Norte. May we request former First Lady Imelda Marcos, First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, Representative Ferdinand Alexander Marcos, Representative Angelo Marcos Barba, Miss Irene Marcos Araneta, Mr. William Vincent Marcos, and Mr. Joseph Simon Marcos to stand behind the dais.
Kapitano, sa kanan. Rap. Sulong. Kad. Tanghal. Ta! Kapitano, tanghal. Ta! Kapitano, baba. Ta! Nadala. Kalis. Baba! Ta! Kapitano, lap sa kaliwa. Rap. Sulong. Kad. Kapitano, lap sa kaliwa. Rap. Sulong. Kad. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tanghal! Ta! Ang pinuno. Tanghal. Ta. Ang pinuno. Baba. Ta. Ang nadala. Kalis. Baba. Ta. Mahal na Pangulo, tapos na po ang pag-aalay. Pinuno. Baba. Ta. Ang pinuno. Nadala. Kalis. Pasulong. Mga katanod, kamulunan. Sulong. Kad.
Tinawag si Kong Sandro later.
May we request everyone to remain settled at their respective places for the start of our program. Diyan po nagtatapos ang pag-aalay ng bulaklak. Now, may we call on Ilocos Norte Governor Cecilia Araneta Marcos for the welcome remarks.
Naimbag, bigat kada kayo amin apo, maragsakanak ang makita, ken makadwa kayo amin ditoy apo. I would really like to thank and greet our Excellency Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and our beloved First Lady, Lisa Araneta Marcos, and our forever First Lady, Imelda Romualdez Marcos, and the First Sister, Irene Marcos Araneta, and of course, our Congressman Sandro Marcos and Congressman Angelo Marcos Barba, along with our honored guests and fellow public servants. On behalf of the Ilocano community, it is my honor to welcome you all to today's commemoration of the 108th birth anniversary of our Apo Lakay, former President Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. Our very own Apo Lakay was an Ilocano who dedicated his life to the Filipino people. And of course, in this day and age, I keep pondering and wondering what would he say in the state, for the state of the nation as it is today. So I thank God as well that he has given us a great leader that's here for such a time as this, that he is really able to navigate and weather all these things that are coming at him from his father's legacy. So we pray that the Lord will continue to guide us in the same spirit of integrity and service that Apo Lakay has exemplified. So thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to celebrate the 108th birthday of our beloved President, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. God bless you all.
Agyaman kami, Apo Gobernadora Cecilia Araneta Marcos. At this point, may we call on House of Representatives Majority Floor Leader Ferdinand Alexander A. Marcos to introduce our guest of honor.
Gagayem, ken kakabsat, ti Pangulo, ti Pilipinas, His Excellency, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
Thank you very much for the introduction from our first district representative, Congressman, Majority Floor Leader, Congressman Sandro Marcos. Andito rin siyempre ang ating diputado ng Segunda Distrito, the Congressman from the 2nd District, Congressman Angelo Barba. Our newly installed governor, Governor Cecilia Araneta Marcos. I would also like to greet the commander of the 5th Infantry Division of the Philippine Army, Major General Gulliver Señores. Batak City Mayor, Mayor Marky Chua. Ayan. Of course, all the mayors, vice mayors, councilors, members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan ng Ilocos Norte. We also have very many guests from the political leadership of Cagayan, of Pangasinan, of Isabela. At nandito silang lahat. Pasalamatan natin at sila ay nakarating para sa ating pagsasama dito sa pag-ugnay, sa ating pagdiriwang ng 108th birthday ng aking ama. The provincial and government officials, employees, residents of Batak, of course, First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, fellow workers in government, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, the most special guest of all is our, tama yung sinabi ni Gob, our forever First Lady Imelda Marcos. Naimbag na bigat kada kayo amin. And first of all, I would like to thank all of you to have taken the time to join us as we celebrate the 108th birthday of my father here in Batak. It is as you can imagine, it is a very, very important day for the Marcos family because we remember the greatest of all of us, President Ferdinand Marcos. Whenever we come and commemorate the life of Ferdinand Marcos, whenever we go back and relive the life and the life of service of Ferdinand Marcos, not only when he was president, but through his entire life, what we always can see and what is always spoken of is the great legacy that he has left us. It is a legacy of service. It is a legacy of sacrifice. It is a legacy wherein he made it very clear to us that if you are going to be a good Ilocano, if you are going to be a good Filipino, then you must be willing to sacrifice everything, including your life, for the Filipino, for the Philippines. We must always remember that to provide good service, to be able to bring good service to our people, then that that will need, that we must remember, we must be motivated by the lessons that he left with us. The lessons that we must exercise good judgment and always, always side with the national interest and the interest of Filipinos. In everything that we do, we must be motivated by a true commitment to service. And it must be driven by a true love of every single Filipino and a love for the Republic of the Philippines. These are the many, many lessons that we must maintain always our dignity, and we must always respect the dignity of every Filipino. And not only respect the dignity of every Filipino, but we must fight for the dignity of every Filipino. We will not allow for any great power, any person, to humiliate or to put down any Filipino. We must also always remember that we must do the right thing. That despite the difficulties, we must always find ourselves on the right side of history. I always remember when I was still a boy, and he would constantly say, and that was something that was anathema to all of his thinking and all of his policies. And there was another lesson that we learned from, I was about to say the old man, kasi ganun that is how we referred to him when he was alive. And another lesson that we learned from him is that we must always maintain our own dignity and the dignity of the country. And we must always continue to sacrifice and to remember that sometimes the best thing to do, the most honorable thing to do, is the hardest thing that you have to do. But that is the sacrifice that we make, and that is the commitment that we have to the service of Filipino people. So when we remember all of these lessons and the very, very important and very, very wide-ranging and deep legacy that Ferdinand Marcos left to us, what we now, those of us who are still here and still hold his memory in reverence, what we need to do is to make ourselves worthy of that legacy, worthy inheritors of that legacy, that we must also live up to the standards that he set for us, that we must always continue to remember what we are doing, and that what we are doing is not for ourselves. What we are doing is for the country. What we are doing is for the Filipino people. And only then can we say that we are the proper inheritors of such a legacy. Only when we have shown that we have met the standard that he set for us. When he was alive. And he continues to set for us in His memory. That is the only time that we can say, yes, we can continue His legacy. But this is not a job that is done by doing one good thing, two good things, three good things. We are only worthy of that legacy if we live a life of service, if we live a life of commitment, if we live a life of sacrifice for our people. If we continue to think of ways to help our people. One of the many things that he often would tell me, do not go by the path that is well trodden. Make your own way. Because if you follow other people, you will end up in just the same place. So that if you want to bring progress to the Philippines, if you want to bring a better life to Filipinos, you must find your own way. You must find your own path. And that is the most important lesson, in that we cannot continue to just do, as we refer to it now, business as usual, just go and continue what has always been done. We must continue to use our skills, our intelligence, our strengths, so that we can find new ways to be of service to the Filipino. So today, as we remember the life of Ferdinand Marcos, and we look to his legacy, what we must now remind ourselves is that we must ask ourselves, are we worthy of such a great legacy? Are we worthy of such an important legacy? Are we worthy of such a deep legacy? We will only be that if we can say that we have given our lives to the service of the Filipino. And that is the ultimate lesson that we must learn and to live by when we think of Ferdinand Edelin Marcos Sr. Thank you very much, and good morning.
Maraming salamat, mahal na Pangulo. And now, may we request the President to kindly grant us a photo opportunity. First, may we call on former First Lady Imelda Marcos, First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, Miss Irene Marcos Araneta, House of Representatives Majority Floor Leader Ferdinand Alexander Marcos, Congressman Angelo Marcos Barba, Ilocos Norte Governor Cecilia Araneta Marcos, Mr. William Vincent Marcos, Mr. Joseph Simon Marcos, and Miss Mandy Marcos to join the President. Ilocos Norte Provincial Government officials and members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan, please stand by. Ilocos Norte provincial government officials and members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan for the photo opportunity. Mayors of Ilocos Norte, please stand by. Thank you, Ilocos Norte provincial government officials and members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. Please exit the stage. Next, we call on the mayors of Ilocos Norte for the photo opportunity. Vice mayors of Ilocos Norte, please stand by.
To Her Excellency Maria Theresa Lazaro, Secretary for Foreign Affairs of the Philippines.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the closing of the San Francisco Conference in 1945, Filipino General Carlos P. Romulo declared the UN Charter as an achievement for all humanity. It is an accomplishment, he said, that will embrace and protect us at the same time that it liberates the human spirit. Our faith in the United Nations Charter endures as the international community celebrates the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. United in purpose, we, the 193 member states of the United Nations, are stewards of this office, of this edifice. It counts on our courage to be equal to the task it bestows on us. The United Nations was born in the rubble of war. We embark on a peace that works not only for the powers of that day, but also for all of humanity, for all time. We forge through the Charter a covenant of just and equitable peace. Yet today, we ponder on the triumphs of this shared journey amidst the jolting clamor for peace and humanity under the very circumstances for which the United Nations was conceived. We must end the suffering of millions who live in starvation and fear in Gaza. Ceasefires must hold. Humanitarian access must be restored without restrictions. Children, women, and innocent civilians must be saved from further violence. Healing must begin. The two-state solution is the only viable diplomatic solution for sustainable peace. We must end the conflict in Ukraine. A just peace is only possible with respect for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity. We must double down to address humanitarian crises around the world, looking at their roots and investing in durable solutions. We must protect and assist displaced populations in Sudan, Syria, Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Sahel region, of the Rohingyas, and in many other parts of the world. This June, the Secretary General reported that over 40,000 cases of violations against children in armed conflict, the highest recorded in 30 years. This is unconscionable. We owe our children peace. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as UN founders recognized that peace was the antidote to fragility and uncertainty after the war, this time's call on the United Nations, particularly the Security Council, to make bold decisions. We must forge new pathways for international peace and security. This is a challenge that the Philippines is ready to rise up to as we seek a non-permanent seat in the Security Council for the term 2027-2028. We look ahead to the solemn honor of serving this body. The Philippines is committed to contribute to the Security Council in a manner that takes into account the views and concerns of the general UN membership and other principal organs of the United Nations. We recognize the weight of the responsibility of the Security Council. When it acts for the interest of humanity, it is a fulcrum of change, a force for good, and a bastion of hope for populations trapped in hopeless situations. We seek to be part of it to help advance the cause of global peace with the depth of experience earned from our struggles for peace. In the Philippines, we know that beyond stopping hostilities, peace is a just order with individuals flourishing in dignity at its center. The success story of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARM, tells us that peace building, though sometimes arduous and long, endows communities their rightful future. Our vision for global peace finds its home in the 1982 Manila Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of Disputes. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the UN Charter binds nations in promoting peace and progress in larger freedom. This drives our quest for global solutions to the transcendent challenges that affect nations. New models are needed to achieve equitable, sustainable, and inclusive development. For decades, the UN development system has aided transformation in many nations, including the Philippines. Amidst current funding shortfalls, we must support reforms to help it deliver value to UN member states in tight accord with national priorities, with less bureaucracy and fragmentation. It is regrettable that politics and the demands of war have cut development financing globally, just as we embark in the last mile of the SDG agenda. This has shifted the focus to the roles of developing and middle-income countries as shapers of development solutions. And why not? Together, we are the fastest growing economies, the largest consumer markets, and the top sources of human capital. Even as we manage our share of economic vulnerabilities within our borders, developing nations are assuming greater responsibility as agents of transformative and inclusive cooperation. We are actively reshaping the global development agenda in the 21st century. In the Financing for Development conference in Sevilla, we faced the sobering truth that the current financial system is untenable. It is one that has fostered debt burdens and perpetuated power imbalance, a system that mires the poor and favors the wealthy. Structural asymmetries undermine the ability of developing countries, particularly climate-vulnerable ones, to mobilize the scale and quality of finance required for resilient development. Access to finance remains skewed. Climate-vulnerable developing countries face borrowing costs that exceed their projected growth rates. The eligibility criteria for concessional finance is tied to outdated income classifications with no account for risks and vulnerabilities faced by many countries that need such lifelines for sustaining their growth. Reforms are long overdue. Multilateral processes must confront the widening gap between climate ambition and the means of implementation, whether in terms of financial resources, technology transfer, or capacity building. Developed countries must fulfill their financial obligations. Multilateral development banks must do their part. Climate finance is a binding commitment as affirmed by the International Court of Justice in its unanimous advisory opinion last July. We need to rebalance decision-making power in global financing institutions. Developing countries must be co-architects of systems that determine allocation, eligibility, and accountability. As a maritime country known for its mega biodiversity, the Philippines considers the sustainability of our environmental ecosystem as key to our climate and economic resilience. I am pleased to announce the Philippines' ratification of the BBNJ agreement, and this is in line with our commitment to the rules-based international order and the 1982 UNCLOS. We are determined to advance the just governance of the oceans and the conservation of maritime biodiversity. In our reflection on evolving multilateralism to be more fit for purpose, we must consider progress in the way we account for our stewardship of resources. Our economic models must account for the health of our planet. We must measure our success in promoting development in larger freedom in our accountability to every nation and every person of the community. Societies thrive in diversity and inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand in the midst of a global revolution of people, of economies, and of technologies. Migration straddles these changes. The movement of people across borders sustains growth in countries of origin, transit, and destination alike. Every day, Filipino migrants across the world are a testament to this. They support health systems, advance education, and boost creative economies. The 1.9 million seafarers are the backbone of maritime trade that accounts for 90% of global commerce. The International Conference on Seafarers, Human Rights, Safety, and Well-being held in Manila early this month affirmed that states and stakeholders are ready to do more for them. As migrants link our nations, their rights and dignity should be a gathering point, not a fault line for governments. Technology is the other defining force of our age, a connector, an enabler, an equalizer. Artificial intelligence offers promise, but carries profound risks. We must help build digital societies that bridges development divides rather than widen them, conforming with safeguards against misuse. Over the last 80 years, the United Nations Charter has served as a wellspring of purpose and action for those who rise equal to the task of delivering its promise. There is no alternative to the United Nations. There is no good global order other than one based on international law and the principle of the sovereign equality of states. A rules-based order is indispensable. To maritime nations such as the Philippines, international law, particularly the 1982 Law of the Sea, is fundamental to our future. While our government vessels and fisher folk continue to be harassed in our own waters, and as we remain the receiving end of illegal, coercive, aggressive, and dangerous actions in the South China Sea, we abide by the UNCLOS as reinforced by the binding 2016 Arbitral Award on the South China Sea. We are committed to diplomacy and other peaceful means to settle disputes. At the birth of the UN, the Philippines actively helped in framing the foundational principle of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. The early decades of the UN saw the spirited engagement of Filipino diplomats against colonization and apartheid and economic inequality, we have steadfastly strived for justice. For its cause, we have helped manage the front lines of climate diplomacy, from the drafting of the Climate Change Convention itself to the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. We have engaged with the fire of a nation familiar with the brunt of devastation, of disasters and extreme weather events. We know the urgency of global action. Justice and equity was our guidepost during the crafting of the WHO Pandemic Agreement. The adoption of this treaty last May was a sweet spot in the Philippines' presidency of the World Health Assembly. Our pledge to peace is unwavering. The Philippines was among the first to respond to the UN call for assistance in the Korean War. A decade later, Philippine troops flew halfway across the globe to aid in peacekeeping operations in the Congo. Since then, we have sent nearly 15,000 troops to 21 peacekeeping missions in Africa, Middle East, and the Asia Pacific. This experience has taught us that peacekeeping is about empowering communities. It must carve exit strategies with focused, non-politicized mandates from the Security Council. New models must be tailored to context and needs on the ground. Then as now, we embrace our role as a bridge builder. As General Carlos P. Romulo put it in 1946, a bridge between two worlds, among the first of many that must be erected to make them one. Then as now, we offer steady hands in New York, Geneva, Vienna, Bangkok, Nairobi, Rome, and the cradles of joint action as a partner, pathfinder, and peacemaker. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, our world is far different from the world inhabited by the founders of the UN. Our new realities test the durability of the Charter at its 80th year. The measure of credibility for the UN is whether it can hold its sovereign promise in today's world, where nations shape the future on equal terms. As I conclude, I recall again General Romulo's words at the first UN General Assembly in 1946 that the Filipino stake in the United Nations is one of an identical destiny, of shared anxiety, of hope and endeavor. The journey of the entire family of the United Nations has been one of hope and endeavor. In the strength of our diversity, the UN is the common vessel steering humanity through the onslaught of challenge and change. We count on each other for the courage to hope and courage to act. Let us persevere in purpose, in action, as the United Nations, so we can claim before those who came before us and those coming after that we have risen to the challenges of our time and have far exceeded our calling. Thank you and mabuhay.
I thank the Secretary for Foreign Affairs of the Philippines. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Maria Theresa Lazaro, Secretary for Foreign Affairs of the Philippines.